Hello, everybody. We're here today on Saves Farms with one of our favorite people, Robert Wallace. So, Robert Wallace saves farms today. We're going to talk about what he does and how he got here. So, the first question probably is what do you see as this last week? We know every time we talk to you, there's a lot going on in the electrification of that space. So, anything hot off the presses? We can start there.
Yeah, I think one of the things in the last week was the Con Expo down in Vegas, and they had a lot of the off-road electric vehicles. And I didn't get to go to the event. There's some really good content online, and some of the stuff that's out, I had no idea even existed. And so we see a lot of the main name manufacturers actually coming out with everything from larger excavators to dump trucks to backhoes and stuff. And so I think for me, that's kind of late breaking news as a result of that show.
So you're talking off road. You're talking like the industrial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more construction type equipment, dirt moving equipment. Several different manufacturers of excavators, skid steers, those types of units, but actually some larger excavators and construction style dump trucks too that I've seen.
And are you seeing like the major brands?
Yeah, we're seeing major brands. Volvo's one of them, for example. They've got a whole variety of different front end loaders and such. Yeah, several of the major brands are bringing this equipment on, so it's really interesting to see that.
So when it goes to construction and some of the major pieces like excavators and top brands, that tells me that we're getting closer and closer to the future being here.
Yeah, I think so. And we've seen over the years a lot of the original equipment kind of coming out in the European market, and then it may come to the United States market. And so this Con Expo is really almost like a global show of all kinds of electric or all kinds of equipment in general, but a lot of those main name manufacturers brought electric versions of some of their lines. Yeah.
Yeah. And they look just as cool as.
Yeah, I mean of course at that show they're all decaled up and they actually look a little better, but yeah, and so I think everybody wants to get in one and test it. How's it work? Does it compare with my traditional diesel piece of equipment? So yeah.
I know that Chad got to attend the event that you put on at the local college. Jen and I, unfortunately, we were down in Southern Oregon working sheep on a site down there, which was a challenging site. So we didn't get to come up in time. But I know that event you had several pieces there here in Oregon. The functionalities there is just more about maturing to size and battery life and charging capabilities. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, we brought in through our eFarms program, which we're a part into the state of Oregon. And so part of the challenges for that is there's been two different tractor manufacturers that originally started, and both of them gone out of business because they're startups. And so, we're encouraged to see some of the traditional manufacturers moving into this space, hoping that they can back that up, that they're not trying to make an electric tractor, but also trying to make a tractor. Right. You know what I mean? And some of these name brand, they've been making tractors for 100 years. So just basically putting an electric drivetrain into them. And so that's encouraging. But yeah, we've had the Rivian pickup trucks, the F-150 Lightning pickup trucks. We've had 3 different models of electric tractors, mini excavator. At the show at the community college there, we had one of the Stihl zero-turn electric mowers. I'm trying to think what else we had. We had some units are called track mow, and it's a little real low profile mower, remote control. And so I think the two things we're seeing is electric, but then autonomous. We're seeing a lot of remote control and autonomous operation units too. So they're kind of, both of them are slightly different. It doesn't have to be an electric unit to be autonomous. But those are two areas we're seeing a lot of the field equipment growing. Yeah.
And I know that you have, in the time that we've known you, you've been a student of this evolution and had your finger on the pulse, and you participated, talked about charging and some of those things. So can you share a little bit on like the companies you're with? I think there's more than one, and like the efforts you're making, maybe even a little bit. Like, how did you come to this space? Have you always been an electric guy, or?
Yeah. No, I haven't. Yeah. So I have a few different hats, and I remember being a kid, kind of as a joke, they'd have a hat with several bills on it.
Right.
I want to get one of those and then put all the different names on it. But I'm the executive director for a small nonprofit based out of the Dallas, Oregon called Y East RC&D, and then I own an energy consulting company also called RPW Energy. Okay. And so, how did I get into the space? Most all of my work is working with farms across the state of Oregon and even into Washington on some form of an energy project. A lot of my work's really been with irrigation efficiency, helping folks put in new pumps and variable frequency drives. And I do all the energy calculations and help them get the utility rebates or other funding, so kind of a technical assistance, and looking to try to help. How do they pay to get that work done? And so there was a nonprofit out of Portland named Fourth, and one of their guys had seen a manufacturer out of California that was producing an electric tractor. And he started reaching out and trying to figure out how or who they knew that could get the wheels dirty on this tractor. And he jokes and says, "I'm just a city boy. I'm not going to last very long out there in the mud, And so he called me, and I think he was really wanting an answer, and I just said, I don't know, beat country and stuff, and just kind of like, I'm not sure I'm your guy here. And so he called a couple different times. We'd met a few times about it. They wanted me to be the person that took on this electric tractor and actually field tested it. And I said, well, I'll do it, but I'm not going to sugarcoat the results. I want to tell you exactly how it is. And if it don't work, I'm going to tell you that. He said, hey, that's exactly what we want.
Okay.
I said, all right, I'll do that. And they've been true with that the entire time. And some of it is, some of this newer equipment from the newer manufacturers has some bugs. It's got some glitches. You got to be a little patient with it and stuff. That's how I originally got in to that program. And originally we were going to purchase 2 tractors. And that was kind of be it. Now I've got a whole fleet of different vehicles as part of that program. And we're just a partner of the program. There's other folks that are involved.
And so one of the things we appreciate about you is the farmer mindset around the practicality and the reality of some of this equipment. We understand that whether it's solar running a well or automatic gate, all these different systems, kind of this produce your own power, control your energy needs and use, kind of this whole electrification of farms, whether it's a microgrid or just putting some of the pieces out there because they make sense. We know that you've had your finger on the pulse, but you've also been, we appreciate that you look at it farmer first. Like, is this really going to work? Does this really help? Or does it sound good? It's a neat story, but it's not good. And so you're seeing those pieces mature enough to where, like, starting with energy calculations, but all the way up to like getting closer. It's like cell phones or anything else. The first one weren't so good and they were expensive, but every week we get closer and closer to those products being viable and then moving to things like autonomous, which is a massive labor situation for us. So you're seeing, just in the last 24 months, you've seen an evolution, or you've seen a commitment from some of. Is the future getting here, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, I really think it is. And a lot of it's your matchmaking. And so like my neighbors, they're like, oh, that electric tractor is not going to work for me. And I said, you're a wheat farmer, and the smallest tractor you have is 120 horsepower. Like, this little 40 horsepower tractor is not going to pull your grain cart for you. it's meant to work in a nursery, an orchard, a vineyard. And so I think, that's trying to be realistic about what it is. And the tractor is probably the hardest thing there is to try to electrify because it has to do everything.
Yeah.
It's got all kinds of implements it has to run, and it's got a PTO, and everybody wants a front end loader and all these different things. And so I look at that, kind of compare it to a car. A car drives down the road.
Right.
But a tractor has to be the Swiss Army knife tool. And so it's a little unique, but some of the units we have, I say, are better than traditional fuel vehicles. They're smoother, they're quiet, they're more powerful. And, that's a lot of times, is it powerful? Is it quick? Almost everything we have is too fast. Some of the side-by-sides, they just go and we have to tune them down. We have to limit the speed on them because they're instant torque and stuff. Range and how long you can run, and that is always big questions. But I definitely see movement, especially in vehicles. It's ahead of everything, the cars, and then everybody's kind of trying to figure out the pickup trucks and stuff. Will they work for what I need? And then the next thing on vehicle wise is really your medium and heavy duty vehicles. And I think all that still needs to be proven out. But a lot of the dirt moving equipment, your little excavators, front end loaders, those types of things. But go into Home Depot right now and go look for a lawnmower. Most of them are electric.
Yeah.
Very few of them are gas. And that's what I'll tell folks. And look at your hand tools. Your contract guys are all cordless drills now. So the battery technology is definitely improving. And a lot of times I'll tell folks that we got a lot of horsepower. We just may have a small fuel tank because of the battery capacity of some of these things. But there's a lot of other things that come out of it. One of the other things real quick that we're looking at is the resiliency standpoint. Out where I live, we get hit with wildfire every summer whilst these tractors have outboard power. So I've got a generator on wheels essentially, and I can roll it wherever I want and get 120 or 240 volt power out of it to run. Like at my house, I have no cell phone. I have to have power to run my pump for water, my internet and everything. And so I can actually run portions of my house if I lose power with plugging it into this tractor. Same with the pickups and stuff. So there's some other things that don't really get talked about much when you're looking at this equipment.
That's something that's really attractive for me. We're working with I think we can say it, we're working with John Deere on their electric. The storage capacity, as farmers here in the valley, we're lucky if we can use a piece of equipment 3 months a year. Mm-hmm. We have rain and mud most of the time. But we pay for it for 12 months a year. And it usually just sits in the shed. And if that is full of energy, or even my energy, if I can self-produce the energy, that is a piece of value that I've never had on the farm as a backup system. Or maybe I'm trading energy. Maybe I'm plugging in the electric bobcat or something in the winter, and I can manage the energy that way. So I think I speak to when the farmers have the tools, the innovation to how to use them more. And shit, we just never had those pieces to really learn, like, what can we do and how can we incorporate it? So I think on the scalable side, I think the stuff is getting bigger, the battery life. And then one of the biggest questions that we were addressing this morning, we were looking at charging stations, is the practicality of charging. I know you and I have talked about that and charging in the field versus at the farm. So I know there's some advances in that. I remember one conversation we had maybe a year or two ago. You were talking about at that time, due to some decisions, Chevy Silverado was the best battery on the market for the dollar. Just looking at those opportunities, because it's a new world to most people, especially farmers. Do you think that battery capability from the nurse, like the kind of the service truck mindset, that's coming along with it?
Oh yeah. I was trying to think where I want to kind of start with that. And so we're looking at various different mobile batteries for some projects we're working on. on one of the projects, I started describing to our team this battery unit that I found and described it 200 kilowatt hour, and, on. And I said, it's wrapped in a blue bow tie. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's a Chevy Silverado pickup truck. And they laughed about it, but it is, if you look at just the battery capacity, it is one of the most affordable batteries. It's probably half the price of it going out and buying an equivalent battery pack in a lot of cases. So, we can use some of those vehicles to refuel other vehicles in the field. And we were over right at, I think it was 2 years ago, we were over at the FFA State Convention over in Redmond, and we actually hosted a couple of different series. And a couple of those kids came up and said, hey, well, this is a nice, fancy electric tractor you have, but how in the heck am I going to charge it when we're clear there into the farm? And I just think of it as we can haul fuel, just like you can haul diesel or whatever, but it's in a battery instead of a tank. And we can fuel these vehicles in remote areas. The charging aspect's something that we struggled with originally. We thought we were going to have to we loaned the equipment out to farmers across the state for them to get some experience with it. We thought we had a charger at each site, and it really wasn't that challenging. Most of the time, we can charge just fine off of a 50 amp, 240 volt outlet. Every farm shop's got welder plug. Yeah. And so as we talk to folks now and working to get them set up, how are we going to charge us? We got a welder plug. Yep. That's all right. We're good. Yeah. And it's really that easy. And even when I'm out and about, I always carry, like, we're driving an electric vehicle, I always carry a charger with me, because I'm in the frontier unexplored territory sometimes. And I know that I know a lot of farmers around, and if I got in a pinch, I could call them. They let me come into the shop and plug in and charge. They wouldn't let me forget it, but just in case we can charge from an RV park or a number of different locations. We charged one time. We were throughout Lake County and charged on a pottery kiln outlet, and because that's what was there, and probably the first electric vehicle ever been charged in that location and stuff. But the charging, I think the charging on the heavy duty trucks and stuff is going to be a little bit different. But on your vehicles and on the smaller equipment, you're going to be able to charge it on a 220 or 240 volt, 50, 80 amp circuit.
I think that is a huge piece. I think it's for the farmer. Almost every farm has a shop. Like in this shop, we've got 6 or 8 welder plugs scattered around. That connection, do you have a welder plug? Almost every farmer is going to say yes. And it just went from how am I going to charge?
Yeah, it's not.
If you think about the number of places in society or on a farm that you have electricity versus the number of places that you have fuel, diesel or gas stored, usually that's designated to one spot.
Yep.
Now, you may have diesel in a dip, like that truck is full of diesel, but you don't want to try to transfer it to the other one.
Yeah.
Right? That's impractical and unfavorable. But I think that welder plug mindset, when people realize, you know what, I am set up. The same thing that runs my plasma cutter, my welder, or whatever piece of equipment I have. As we get to that practicality, it becomes, I think that's a big mindset barrier for farmers, is the thought that repowering the tractor, refueling the tractor is going to be such a pain that I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. And so I think that welder plug is a difference maker for farmers.
It's a little different to get used to, because right now you come in, let's say in the morning, you go fire your tractor up, you bolt down the diesel tank, fill it up, and you run for the day. But you got to plan the night ahead.
Yeah.
And so when you're done, you pull into the barn, plug it in. One of the situations I had out where I live, we don't have a lot of gas stations. I live out in the middle of the wheat field and stuff, and there'd be times I'd forget to get fuel and get home late, and I need to be gone early in the morning, and I'd have to wait till 8 o'clock in the morning for the local country fuel station to open up to get fuel. And I don't any like if I've got I went and bought a used Tesla because I wasn't sure if it was going to work for me, so I bought a used one, and I drive the wheels off of that car, but I charge at home. I got 300-mile range. I don't have to wait for the fuel station opening. And one of the other things I like to tell folks is like the kids can't steal my gas now because you got teenage kids and they get a little low, they come take dad's lawnmower gas or whatever and stuff. And so folks laugh about that, especially like a side by side. We've got a few Polaris Kinetic side by sides. It is so nice just to use it. You're done. You plug it in and fill it back up because if you don't have fuel on site, it makes it more challenging to fuel some of these vehicles. Do you haul fuel to it, or do you load it on a trailer and haul it down to the pump? And so there's some advantages.
For like us, historically, with most farms, we have a service truck with a tank on it. We used to buy diesel at a truckload at a time.
Yep.
6,000 gallon double wall type tank. And we sold that. And ironically, it's the size of a 20 or 30 foot shipping container.
Yep.
And if we had a battery sitting there, battery situation, it would take up the same footprint. For us, it's full of fuel. It's no difference. But we still have to plan ahead. We got to fill it up there, go down to the co-op, fill up this nurse tank, and then head out in the morning to service the equipment, fill it up. So there still is management. It just seems different. But I don't think it's going to take that many repetitions when you realize, what we're used to.
Yeah, it's more electricity. Fuel's more convenient. To be honest with you, you just gotta set yourself up for it. And I think wherever you drive, you're seeing fuel trucks drive down the highway. Fuel's coming through lines.
Yeah.
And I mean, look what's happened in the last week with petrol fuel costs. Well, my electric price is pretty flat. I am not, if I'm driving the electric vehicle or electric equipment, my cost didn't just all of a sudden just spike. I mean, electric prices have gone up. I don't want to say it hasn't, but it's a lot more price stability.
Well, for me, and when I talk to my fellow farmer friends, that energy independence control, especially if you could produce your own, you have your own solar array, your own some level of battery storage and some sort of charging capability, and continue to get more electric. If you can produce your own, I understand there's a cost to the hardware, right? Whatever you do is going to cost, whether there's some sort of a monetary help through some incentive program or some grant money, whatever you can get. However, there is predictable pricing if you can go that route, or even net metering is still available in the area. What we just saw is fuel take a jump for 80 cents or $1 or whatever it was in a matter of like 48 hours.
Yeah.
And for any thin margin farm budget, that's an unpredictable piece that's very unattractive.
Mm-hmm.
And you run it out for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Well, you start monetizing what it's going to cost to pay for my own hardware. It's my sunshine in that tractor. Mm-hmm. To me, it makes more and more sense from a control and an independence standpoint and a cost-effective standpoint. I think farmers are going to quickly see that when we have electric equipment, whether it's drones or whatever, or the laser weeders, that technology is extremely attractive. No water, no chemicals. That's extremely attractive, right? So when you start moving to those pieces, being able to produce your own power becomes, in my mind, very attractive.
Yeah, I think a few barriers that are there right now is the cost. The cost of the electric equipment is quite expensive in comparison up front. But I think you got to look at that total cost of ownership of it to see if it works for you, and then sizing the equipment in an appropriate situation. So you're not going to take these 40 horsepower electric tractors and replace your 150 horsepower tractor you're dealing hay with. They're not equal. And so, I think that, trying to make sure you got the right size piece of equipment at the right location and doing the right work. But, and then beyond that, there's a lot of other benefits. And I grew up driving diesel pickups, and
Right.
I mean, and I still have a diesel pickup, and that's what I use when I'm towing a trailer and those types of things. I don't have anything to substitute for that.
Right.
But if I can use these other units 80% of the time, it makes a big difference on my bottom line.
Yeah, for me, I just drove to Portland and back this morning, Jen and I, with a 1-ton, 3,500 Silverado, and we had a load of rice going up, but I do think that, where do you see going from 40 to 50 to 100, 120 horse in the tractor? Is that 2 years away? Is that 5 years?
Yeah, in my own opinion, I really think it comes down to the battery potential. I mean, I think you can go as big a horsepower as you want, but it's how big of a fuel tank can we have economically put on that unit with the size we have. And that's one thing in some of the equipment that I had seen was at the Con Expo and this last week. Some of the equipment has a little bigger tail on it or what have you, and it's like the front end loaders and stuff. It's meant to accommodate that battery pack, to size it appropriately. Everybody's trying to run an 8-hour shift, trying to get enough battery, run an 8-hour shift. So I think that's really, I think the horsepower, you can put whatever you want. Do you have the battery?
It's like your home electric drill.
Yeah.
You can make that last a long time, or you can really pour it to the torque to it. And you can run that battery's warm and it goes away quick. Yeah. So one of the things that I find fascinating from the battery capacity and the battery size is almost any farm vehicle and most construction vehicle have weight on it. Yep. There's a big chunk of iron, like the excavator, the back end is a big chunk of iron. Yep. So the weight is there. If that battery can start to be using those counterweight or those balanced weight applications, to me, it's only a matter of innovation and maybe getting used to a little different looking configuration. But I think it's interesting that we have to add a bunch of iron to the equipment now, so the weight is not an issue. Yeah. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and tractors are unique with that. Most vehicles, they're trying to trim weight off. They're adding weight. We're filling the tires with beet juice to put more weight.
Yeah, and you got a big rack of suitcase weights on the front and wheel weights. And like an excavator, like I said, you'll have a massive
counterweight on those,
So to me, that's an interesting place for innovating battery capacity because you're not worried about, what's going to add a lot of weight to the excavator.
Yeah.
You don't have to have.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about batteries, like in a four-wheel drive tractor, you put 300 gallons of fuel in it, it has weight, and the tractor weighs something different at the end of the day. Batteries, the same weight, whether they're full of juice or not.
Yeah, I'd kind of defer to Chad on what the weight of electricity is, but I think it's a little light compared to diesel fuel. Whatever diesel fuel is 9 pounds a gallon or what have you. I mean, it's going to be very minor difference.
All right, we'll go to the
Can confirm.
What's the weight of an electron, Chad?
It's a 1 E unit. It's really light. It's very light, John.
So with your expert engineer, like if I've got 1,000-pound battery and it's at 100% charge or 10% charge, do I see any weight difference?
You will, a tiny bit. You'll actually also, if you'll see the volume of the battery change a little bit. It like stretches out just a little bit. It's interesting because they're not zero. It's not zero, but it is a little teeny bit. So, and I think this is one of the limitations. Yeah, it's just battery sizing. Robert's got it. As folks want to get bigger equipment, that's going to be the one limiting factor. And keeping them cool is another one.
Keeping them cool, is that during charging, during use? Well, like my drill, if I'm really screwing something, if I'm putting a lot of torque on it, it heats up pretty good. Yeah. Is that our concern for?
I think it's both, as I understand it. It's that thermal control, and it's when you're charging it. I mean, any battery you plug in, you charge it, you feel it feels warm.
Right.
And the same when you're using it. gets warm from using it. So that's, I think, as I understand it, that's one of the big technology challenge with batteries is the thermal control, so that they'll remain in a safe zone. You know, you don't have a thermal runaway. So, and it seems like the battery technology is going so fast. I mean, in the last few months, there's been some announcements of newer technology that's out there that has a lot of the battery experts scratching their head if it's real or not. You know, so I think that we're going to see. I think that's where we're going to see it advance in the next 5 and 10 years. The battery technology. I think you're going to get more storage per unit of space, and the costs are going to come down. You know, it's like that first VCR we paid $1,200 for it.
Yeah.
Shoot, you can go buy now, right? Less than $100.
Yeah.
Get a lot better VCR. You know, and so I really think battery technologies. There's some different technologies that we see folks working on, and I don't know if they have landed on what the best technology is going to be. And I think it may be one thing for a tractor, and maybe something else for a car, and maybe something else for a container that's out on a solar farm or what have you that's stored energy.
So, Chad, would you kind of concur? Would you speak to that? I know you've talked several times about different battery.
Well, yeah.
There's a whole.
I think that eventually we'll get a coevolution here of farm needs and the associated technology. A lot of the early attempts for electric tractors were porting over, car type batteries, lithium batteries. But as you said, like, tractors need weight. So the advantage of a lithium battery is it's light. For a car, if you're going to go down the road, you want it to be light so you can get a good fuel economy. But tractors are different. They want high torque at a low end speed and be heavy. Electric motors have high torque at a low end speed, and batteries are heavy. So it's a good match, in my opinion, about how things can work together. And I do agree that it's harder technically because you've got more, you got your PTO, you got your front end hydraulics, you got your drivetrain. There's more going on in terms of motors, but fundamentally, I think electric equipment matches better with farm equipment than with transportation equipment. And I'm interested to hear about Robert's predictions or speculations about the future, where he thinks this is going. What he thinks a farm and a typical farm will look like here 10 years down the road as these technologies roll out.
Yeah, I think the crystal ball. I think one of the things in the last year, we've seen a change on the federal side that I think slowed some of the EV market, whether it be vehicles or equipment, down. That's part of the reason I was so surprised to see so much electric equipment at the Expo event. As technology advances, and I think especially, we've seen, John Deere, you'd mentioned that, but also Fendt, they've now released their electric tractor into the U.S. market. They were down in California the first part of February, World Ag Expo, and so we're talking real tractors now. We're talking manufacturers that know how to make tractors that have over 100 years of engineering into these units. And I think for them, there's challenges, but you're putting basically an electric power plant into that unit. And a few years ago, I was down at the Expo, Advanced Clean Transportation. It's your medium and heavy duty truck manufacturers, and it was in Las Vegas, and talking to Freightliner, Peterbilt, Mack, all those guys. The technology there is growing so fast, and the ability now that you have electric hub motors, and basically in my opinion, it looks like they're going to build a truck with the frame and wheels on it, and you put the power source you want. You want a diesel generator, but it's going to be kind of electric drivetrain and stuff. And so, that stuff's all advancing. You have the Tesla Semi that's, getting pretty close to coming out now. It's producing some really good numbers. More recently, there's been some information. They've had some of those units up in Alaska running all winter in the cold, frigid winter. and stuff. And so we're seeing some pretty significant investments by these companies, but also advancements on they're really pushing engineering in a lot of ways on what they can get for the performance of these units.
I think it's a new wave of innovation because there's new problems to solve and new fresh look at things and maybe some fresh minds on some of this stuff. A little bit different from electrical engineers and some of this stuff. So
and even that's kind of a good point too. Even on the technician side, it's completely different than your traditional diesel mechanic showing up in the service truck versus now showing up in a pickup truck with a laptop and he's plugging in. And we had that happen with one of the tractor manufacturers, and he stood there with his laptop plugged into the tractor, reading through all the software and firmware that's in it. And someone clear across the globe is actually running the computer scanning because we had a bug in it. Something wasn't right. And I just kind of shook my head. And it's an electrical, you're an electrician, electrical mechanical world now. And so even with the different dealerships and service techs, it's a whole new skill set.
That's probably a little bit, I think the farmers, that's an area feeling like you can't work on it now. Yeah. 2026 diesel tractor got so much technology tied to it. There's the right to repair. I do want to ask Mike a question. Mike shops at a local farmer's market, and I think Mike's pretty socially conscious on some of this stuff. One of the things that's interesting to me as a farmer, I'm looking at an economic. The social view, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. But I know there's a healthy segment, and I'm not talking about policy, I'm talking about the public. Is it something they really care about, or does it just sound good? And so if Mike goes to the farmer's market, and you see yourself a day where you're asking the farmer if he's using electric equipment or diesel equipment, or how?
I mean, now I will. So when I go back on Saturday, for sure. I think it's actually a really good point, John. In all of this conversation, that had actually not occurred to me. But I would imagine that will be the next question. So like when you're talking about stuff, it's do you spray? What do you spray? And then now I would imagine, like, are you running diesel or are you running electric? So I think that probably makes sense. My question for you, Robert, and I looked for the opportunity to annoy my farmers with more stupid questions. But like, Robert, from an adoption standpoint, you guys talked about a lot of stuff. It sounds like a lot of these things have solves, from where you can charge on your farm and the cost of the inputs to charge that versus, electricity versus diesel. And especially like in climate like this, where diesel can go through the roof and electricity is pretty, standard, given, whatever, 1-2% annual increase. So like, where are you seeing the biggest issue for adoption? I would imagine that this conversation is not for someone who just bought a tractor, or even like, I don't know, X years ago. Are you seeing it for like, I'm in the market, I'm willing to try something new because of all the things you guys talked about in terms of charging ability and accessibility? And I would love to hear about your experience about the first time on that tractor and what your review was and how honest it was. But is it the big picture adoption that just like, hey, we're going to just change the way you've done stuff for 100 years? Or is it like more of like, hey, you're shopping, why don't you consider this alternate vehicle made by John Deere, whoever else? So it's like, you're already buying that brand. Like, where are you seeing the most resistance? And John just brought up the level of resistance, which, there's certain things that, like, I think a farmer is going to say, not for me. Like, where are you getting the most pushback in this kind of like evolution?
Yeah, I think the number one barrier right now is the cost, the upfront cost of that piece of equipment. And then right behind that, today, the ag economy is not good. And so
what is the delta of the cost between diesel and electric?
Yeah, sometimes it might be twice as much.
Oh my goodness, really? Okay. Because then you're really playing on the value of the inputs, and like over time this is going to make sense. But that's that's a hard sell today, right?
Yeah.
To your point, I think you were going to go there with the cost of ag, but go ahead.
Yeah, and it depends on the model and stuff. I think the cost is what they gotta figure out. From my understanding, a lot of it's in the cost of the batteries. They're so expensive, and so I would say as much as little as maybe half, 50% more, and sometimes as much as 100% more for that. And so that's where I think we really got to look at the total cost of ownership. So over a 10-year period, what is it going to cost me to operate? But we run into this. It may be an irrigation pump. And if there's two pumps side by side and one's 15% more efficient, the other one's $500 less, a lot of times the guy's going to go with one $500 less, but he's going to pay for it in 2 years because he's going to buy more electricity to fuel it. And I think if you look it as a comparison to irrigation pump, for example, I think they figure that over the life of the pump, let's just say it's 7 to 10 years, the upfront cost is only 10% of what it costs when you look at that time period. And so by getting that pump that's a little more efficient, he's gonna break even in year 2. And so I think that's why we got to look at this. It's different. We got to look at it a little bit different. Our fuel to fuel these vehicles is at a different price level than what we're traditionally used to. And look at how many hours you run it. Does it fit the needs, and how much is it going to cost you to fuel it and operate? Because if you look at the maintenance costs on these are way down. We don't have any engine oil. We don't have air filters for the most part. I mean, very minimal maintenance cost and stuff. But I think the farmer will it work as good or better than the piece of equipment that I have today? And I think that's the big thing beyond cost too.
And are you finding more traction with, like, does it matter about the demographic, like the age of the farmer? Are 35-year-olds a little more open to this versus 65-year-olds?
I've had the same. I don't know that it's an age thing, to be honest with you. I think it's more about on the farming side, like what type of crop are they growing? Like a vineyard, they've got a lot of the vineyards are more of their marketing and stuff. They have sustainability policies and goals. They're going to be more prone to take a look at this versus a wheat farm or cattle ranch where it's just a different marketing for those guys. And we had this rancher out in Paulina, Oregon, and we took one of these side by sides out, and his hired guy hopped on it, and he had the biggest grin you'd ever seen. And he had one of our staff folks with them, and they were chasing cows within minutes. And the rancher, he looked at us and said, he doesn't smile very often. And so I think he just made an impression on this guy, but it was the piece of the side by side or the Polaris, it was equivalent or better than what he's used to using. And so, that's where we kind of got his stamp of approval within 5 minutes. Had it been clunky or not went or something, he would have said, you guys just get this back on the truck and get it out of here. So.
Did you have a similar experience in your first time behind one of these? Like how scathing was your review?
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. I mean, I knew we were bringing the first electric tractor in, and we took the manufacturer for their word on what it was and stuff, and we got it here, and it lacked, the first one we had lacked some performance, I'll say, and had lots of power, but it wasn't the best engineered tractor, I'll say. And but we put it to work. One of the local farmers to me, he's like, well, why don't you go out and hook onto those tires and just drag that alfalfa field for me? So I went out there. He come out and says, I can't believe you're dragging all those tires with that little tractor. And I said, well, what do you mean? He told me to hook it on. And he says, well, I was thinking 1 or 2, and heck, you're pulling all 4, so the torque is so impressive with it. But the tractors since then that we've had were quite a bit better. I can't wait to see the new John Deere and Fendt hit the market. I think they're going to really be the
I think
catalog.
Kubota is supposed to have some good pieces in the market coming. US yet.
Yeah, I know Kubota had some stuff in the European market. We've been kind of watching. Has some front end loaders and excavators. I mean, a lot of these name brand manufacturers have equipment. And it's just, it's when you talk about, how many do we see out there? We don't see a lot out there. It's not like everybody's going out today and buying one, but I think from what we've seen is giving folks an opportunity to run it on their farm or compare it in their operation. That's where you really find out if it's going to work. Because it's a trust. I mean, is this thing going to last? I mean, tractors last a long time.
And it's a piece where, if it does cost more, there has to be a reason. I have to have a reason I'm paying. Is it better? Is it better long term? Does it fit my overall operation where I'm trying to move the farm into the future? Am I making the bet on the future because of this? Like when we planted hazelnut orchards, you don't make money next year.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking at a longer lens, and that's part of like moving the farm to a different type. To me, it's almost that same kind of mindset. Like I'm betting on the 10-year look, not the 1 year, 2 year look. And the technology is going to get better. And I think you're right. Having the big boys in the space, that tells me that this is the future. It might not be ready for everyday farm use, but I think we're rapidly approaching where a farmer can look at it and say, okay, I got a decision. It's not very lopsided anymore.
Yep.
I think that's a huge victory.
So, Robert, you've had a chance to operate a lot of this equipment that's on the market in different sectors. Are there market sectors where the electric is already superior to the combustion engine options, and do you anticipate that to happen in other sectors?
Yeah. I would say the most impressed, I am right now with some of the equipment, like the utility carts and side-by-sides, UTVs. They're as good or better than a diesel or gas unit. But a lot of these companies have been making, electric forklifts and electric industrial carts for years.
Right.
But it's like we think that's all brand new and stuff, and it's not always. So in that space, I believe that a lot of the units we've test drove and that we've used, like those Polarises, I have a hard time getting away from people. They love them. And that the rancher that I was telling you about, he didn't want to give that back. We had it out there for a couple months for him. The other piece I've noticed is like the mini excavators, front end loaders, and that they're just fantastic. So smooth, so quiet. They run your normal shift of what you're gonna use it. A lot of folks, well, how's it do in cold weather? And I'll tell you, I went out at my place, that little diesel excavator, and went out the winter before last and went to use it. The darn thing wouldn't start because it was so cold. And we had just got this little JCB mini excavator, and I'm like, well, that's a little small. I'm gonna just see what it'll do. It ran all afternoon. I was done before it was done. I was cold and stuff, but I couldn't. I mean, we have trouble with the diesel ones too in the winter time and stuff like that. But people, a lot of times want to talk about those extreme conditions and stuff. And so, but in my mind, it's the smaller equipment and stuff that seems to be a real sweet spot for the electric right now. And that's what's encouraging about the bigger equipment that you see.
Yeah. So when Jenna and Chad and I, all three got a chance to play with some different variations of the John Deere tractor. They were so smooth. But my mind is like, is it because the noise isn't there? They're so quiet. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
You don't have to rev the motor up to get whatever you need increased, right? Whether that's speed or power. And one of them had a bucket, and it was almost, you could feel your mind as a lifelong farmer trying to make sense of like the actions and the noises, the stimulation that sometimes is. I think I can speak to most farmers when I say that we're not as tough as we used to be.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of nice not having the loud and the rumble and the vibration, and it just seems so smooth. That was the biggest difference to me. My brain was literally trying to make sense of this. Doesn't sound right. Doesn't feel right. It's a different. So I think you're going to see that become more attractive to farmers.
Yeah.
Like when we've driven, sometimes we've rented Teslas when we're on road trips, and it's a different experience, but they're quick, they're zippy, there are some advantages, and once a person gets used to the advantages, I think to get one of those loud, rattly one, it's going to be a little different. It's going to start to feel different the other way.
Yeah, the manufacturers on the tractor specifically told us about the noise. I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then you run it, and it's maybe not the time you're running it. It's when you go back and run the other one, you're like, oh my God, this thing's noisy.
Yeah.
You don't even think about it. We had a demonstration out in Central Oregon, and a guy had brought an air curtain, and he was throwing juniper in it and making biochar. And he had rented a Yamar diesel mini excavator, and we took our electric one out there. He was loading material into the air curtain burner, and I was bringing material to him with a little excavator. And he stopped and he came over and he says, "It's the darndest thing." I said, "Well, what's that?" He says, "I'm over here working away on this noisy thing. I look over to see you, I don't hear anything."
Yeah.
And it's a mental thing. But we've got several people, whether they're planting vineyards or what have you, or picking fruit or whatever. The tractor's, you start it, it's running, it's idling. With this, it's just sitting there. Yeah. And it's only using energy when it's working. And we've never been able to talk before when we're planting grapevines or what have you. It's something you kind of got to experience. And those are the other benefits to it, the human factor.
I think that is quickly going to get appreciated. Like you say, like we're on our farm, we have some old tractors. Every farm has some old tractors. And the difference, my mind kept reading it as smooth.
Yeah.
It just felt smooth. And it was the absence of the vibration, the noise, and revving the motor up, just felt. And so I think you get used to that. And then you, like you say, you go get on an older piece of equipment or even a new one. Some of them, it still is a different experience.
Yeah.
And then we've all stood next to a tractor or some kind of diesel equipment where it's just sitting there idling and we're trying to talk.
Yeah.
Or you open the cab and you're yelling at somebody. You can't hear each other. It's just idling. And like you say, I'm not used to cars shutting off when I get to the stoplight.
Oh, I know.
I'm not used to that. But that's just because I'm old enough to know, used to a certain experience. So anyway.
Yeah.
So Mike is going to favor the electric producers of the food, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think this is a new branding vehicle. There's organic, there's regenerative, and now there's electrically harvested. I think that this is you can charge a premium for that.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some attraction to it. The laser weeder, you're familiar. That to me is an immediately attractive situation.
Yeah.
You've seen them. I think, Chad, isn't there one at your facility?
It's a mechanical weeder, the one there, the farm droid that Christy has. Yeah, that one is a GPS based mechanical weeder. I think it might have a laser option too. It's a really cool machine though. That's also all electric and fully autonomous and self-powering. So that's a tractor with a mini tractor with a solar panel sail over the top of it, and it powers itself as it goes during the day, and then goes through, plants all your vegetable crops and weeds around them all season long. Really cool.
That's really cool.
I thought there was another one that was hooked to a little tractor that was
that one. Yeah, there's a little laser. There's a laser weeder that goes behind a tractor there. And as far as I know, they've been using a regular old tractor to pull it. But it is, it's a high energy device. So having it literally pull off electric as an electric PTO is another cool option. So you're not doing mechanical energy. You're actually electric to electric.
Yeah. So, I think if the electric tractor, if that market moves forward, I think that's the next thing you'll see. You won't be hooking up a power takeoff. You're going to be plugging a cable in.
Yeah.
That motor is going to have an electric motor, and your rototiller is going to be electric drive. So the safety factors with power takeoff, or even hydraulics. Bobcat has a skid steer in it. I think they said the whole machine's got a pint of oil in it. It's all electric servo motors and stuff. And so I think, there's the engineering side of things and stuff. Cause I mean, every tractor that has the engine horsepower rating, and then it also gives you the power takeoff rating, and there's a percentage less for the mechanical loss. So you're going to plug that mower into your tractor, and it's just going to be an energy source, or whatever implement you have that you're hooking that power takeoff. And if you're like I am, that I dread hooking a power takeoff up. That is the most challenging thing.
I was going to say, it's going
Getting that lined up right. Oh my God.
It's going to reduce the amount of cussing.
Oh, yeah.
Fun,
Yeah.
because you can't hook up a PTO without a lot of swear.
Right.
And
when you do cuss now, they're going to hear you because the tractor's knocking them off.
But hooking up, trying to get those, my whole life, I've never had one go smooth. When you get it's greased, it's like you got everything ready and you're still fighting. Yeah. It's one of those things where but hooking up a 3-point with a PTO is, you brought it up. There's no, you're in for it's. So that right there is extremely appealing to me, and it makes sense because an electric motor is so simple, and it matches the power needs to the implement needs. Where the PTO, you got to run it at certain RPMs. I know, like the new John Deere electric, and I believe I'm pretty positive a lot of the combustion tractors now have separated the PTO from the drivetrain, so you can run that at any speed with your motor doing speed. But with the John Deere electric, it was fascinating to see, it's just a knob, how fast you want the PTO to go. But getting away from that power takeoff and just plugging in, easy things that are easy to plug in, that's an advancement. Again, we're making farmers softer, but a lot less cussing and headaches and backaches.
Well, and I mean, just power takeoff's a huge safety. There's all kinds of farm accidents involving that power takeoff.
Yeah.
And to me, it just those are some of the advancements. I think it's an opportunity for the implement manufacturer to make a different implement with an electric motor on it. Look at all the implements out there.
Right? Yeah. For a rototiller or a mower, I guess I hadn't connected those dots, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Or powering one of these laser beaters, just power.
So, Robert, where or do you? I know John kind of asked this in 2, 4, 5 years. From a pricing perspective, where do you see combustion converging with electric, and where there's parity?
Yeah. Well, I hope that in the coming years, the cost of batteries continue to decline and the performance gets better.
Is battery the biggest driver in the price delta?
I think so. You really need to lean on the manufacturers and ask them that question. But it's the same. It's the same tires. It's the same, kind of chassis for the most part. There's a design in that. But I think the batteries are definitely one of the challenges there. And so, I don't know. In the next, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because now we're seeing traditional name brand companies develop this into this space. And we know they've been working on it, but it's all been kind of behind the curtain. And so I'm excited about it. I can't tell you how excited I am. And especially to see a green tractor have that, because a lot of farmers buy tractors by the color. So to see a green one come out.
And I believe we're going to see, when the major manufacturers are in the space, you're going to see a little bit of a race for market share. And so everybody's going to try to be the first best. And I think that's going to accelerate the innovation and the adoption. And hopefully you get enough examples in the marketplace, you'll see the price start to, I know battery technology, battery materials are just plain expensive.
Yeah.
But I hope that we start to see where the advantages of the electric start to make more and more sense, even over the next 24 months.
Yeah.
I mean, Chad can speak to, I think it's the law of diffusion of innovation.
Mhm.
Get to those
Yeah.
those equations of evolution of technology.
Yeah. I think, trying to match that tractor up with the right farm. And it may not be the guy that's clear out
Right.
20 miles from the nearest power pole. In my mind, it's the same with the medium and heavy duty trucks. A lot of it, are going to be, they have specific routes they're on. They're meant to drive and cover that range, and we build them for success. Let's set folks up for success, and trying to match that piece of equipment up. The other thing on the John Deere, from my understanding, it's a little larger horsepower, 120 horsepower range, and that we're getting into a tractor that's more of a traditional farm tractor. And stuff. The other thing interesting is it seems like a lot of the crop types, for a while we were going bigger. Now it seems like we're coming back smaller, especially in the fruit industry, and a lot of that goes to picking the fruit. The labor it requires, they want less time on the ladder. The rows are coming in, so it lends itself to that smaller piece of equipment. And so I think there's some things that are happening in both directions that may help the effort with this.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that person in our farm and here in the South Willamette Valley. A lot of hazelnuts and pine. But for years, it was the mindset of bigger horsepower, lighter equipment, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet wide, whatever the road network will support, basically. But we've sold 400 and 450 horse tractors to buy 120s and 130s for the orchard. And it's a move to a higher value cropping system. And it used to be efficiency per acre. You got to cover like a dry land week. How much per acre are you spending or can you get done? But now it seems like there's more specificity in the cropping system, and we've got to get more accurate and more friendly to geometry than just bigger.
Yeah.
And I think fuel price, when you fill up one of those big boys, it's $1,500. It's like it's a real decision. I think we're seeing that shift in agriculture. Specific to something that is higher value, especially like Mike was talking about. When you're looking at some of these farm to table models, that's not massive acres. It's like we've got to get small. We've got to add more value on the same footprint, and we have to have different equipment. So I think electric lends to that great.
Yeah, and I mean it's no different. I mean, if you're treating your field with chemical or whatever, used to old school, you spray the whole field. Now they're really looking at the weed seeker and all these different technologies to just put it where you need it. Well, a lot of that also lends itself to smaller versus bigger. But on the horsepower size, like most of our cherry orchards and those guys, they're running an 80, 90, 100 horsepower tractor. And the stuff we've had so far has been more in the 40 horsepower range. And so that's what's exciting to me, to see some, 100, 120 horsepower tractors coming out. I think if you look at the units sold, like the 40 horsepower tractors, the most common units sold, but that's a lot of your small landowners and that. And so for us, I think trying to get it into the main commercial agriculture market, I think is very encouraging.
Awesome. All right. Chad, I know you've got a little speech about the future of farming from a scale kind of.
Well, I mean, I don't know which one you're talking about here, but this is to the point of equipment size. Concentration in terms of getting larger and larger equipment is partly a result of low commodity prices and the drive for efficiency, and partly a result of the fact that you needed one butt in the seat to drive the tractor. A tractor is expensive, but labor is also a huge cost in terms of O&M. So as we go into the future, I think it's going to make a lot more sense when things get autonomous to have a fleet of smaller tractors than one big ass tractor. And this does two things. I mean, when you take labor out of the picture, then that O&M calculation makes sense. And secondly, like John, if you have one giant harvester and that thing goes down, and you're in the harvest season, which is like a couple weeks max, and you're in the line to get that fixed because you don't have a part or whatever, you're kind of SOL unless you can get an alternative. Whereas if you've got a fleet of small tractors that are all relatively cheap to that bigger tractor, well, if one goes down, your operation it's back to that resiliency thing that Robert was talking about. It's just another layer of resiliency for you on your farm to maintain and keep the schedules and respect the cycles of nature and so on.
One thing I was going to say, I think, as I talk to farms that are interested in the equipment, I don't necessarily see them replacing their entire fleet of diesel tractors with electric tractors. I see them adding one, adding two, make sure it's going to work. On the charging, I feel pretty confident we can charge a couple of tractors pretty easily. Now, if the guy's got 18 tractors, we probably got to talk about how we're going to charge. That's a lot of power we're going to try to charge every night. I'm thinking like a cherry orchard or hazelnut, like multiple tractors and stuff. And so, kind of taking a look at that. And I know we've talked a lot about equipment, but I think one of the other things we see from farmers is interest in the vehicles, like the pickup trucks and the small, medium duty box fans, stuff they're hauling rice to Portland. And is there an option for us to do something different than the 3,500 diesel, and will it make it from here to there and back without having to charge? What's my range and stuff? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity with that, especially if folks are generating power on farm. I think they should look at what the different opportunities, not just tractors or equipment, but kind of like, gosh, could I prevent 80% of my miles on my diesel pickup if I did this, or the delivery truck or what? And so we're seeing we've got a lot of folks come to us asking, what are the solutions for this medium heavy duty option? The state of Oregon just came out with a program called Zero Fleets, and there's actually rebates available for folks to pursue, for Oregon businesses to pursue those medium and heavy duty trucks, and they can get a pretty sizable rebate to the state of Oregon to help them some with that cost. But again, the cost on the electric is considerably more traditionally than a traditional diesel, like a Zuzu truck or whatever unit you're looking at.
So, kind of a final thought from me. I see from the self-producing energy. 150 years ago, every farm to use a natural resource to access another natural resource, the water, for farm use. And I don't think we see more and more farms with a ground mount array or on the warehouses on the buildings, and I don't think we're that far away from every farm having some level of self-production and then storage as that gets more developed. Maybe it is a battery wagon. Maybe they don't have a fixed battery situation. And then their own charging and incrementally, piece by piece, moving to more electric because they produce and control the supply of that fuel. To me, that's a very attractive future, and it's going to make more and more sense. People like you doing lots of hard work. It's going to make more and more sense to more farmers as they start to connect the dots. Like, what, the pieces are here.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've got to work out the economics for my future. So, any final thoughts or questions for Robert?
No, this was awesome. Very enlightening.
Hey, Robert, if folks are interested in getting in touch with you or following your work, what can they do?
Yeah, we the one program that I had mentioned where we're testing out the different off-road and agriculture equipment is called eFarms. So they can go on efarms.org, and or our website is yeast-rcd.org, and they can find the different resources there. And we've been in the middle of this. We we test the equipment, we purchase it through sometimes grant funding or other resources. We bring it in. I run it. I got my own little place, and I work it as hard as I can work it, and some of it I've actually called the manufacturer and said, "Hey, am I okay?" And they say, "Yep, you're good." So, all right. And then we put data collection on it. So we've got telemetry on every unit so we can monitor it remotely. And then for the last about 5 years, we've been lending it out to farms that have a comparable piece of equipment all over Oregon. This last year, we've been working in Washington more with one of the utilities up there. And a lot of it's brand new for people. They've never seen a piece of electric equipment or what have you. And real quick too, when I mentioned earlier in the conversation over at the FFA State Convention, and we had a Ford Lightning electric pickup truck, Polaris Kinetic electric side by side, and then one of these Monarch tractors that's fully electric. And the kids instantly knew the Monarch was electric because it looks different. And they're standing there. They didn't realize the Ford and the Polaris were both electric because they look just like the conventional ones, you might say. And so some of the stuff's pretty obvious. If you see a Tesla, it looks different. It's a different design. But some of the pickup trucks or other vehicles, you really got to look to see. And it's all about perception and I think acceptance and stuff. And unfortunately, I think we get tied up sometimes in politics around these things. Right. And it's like, I really does it work? How much does it cost to operate? Does it do as good a job or better than what I'm used to? And so one of the other sites that we created was called EV Math, and it's evmath.org. And we really focused on some rural folks that are driving electric vehicles. And we're going to hear us talk about the economics of it. Right. What's it cost you to drive in comparison to what you were, and really looking at the fundamentals of it. And that's really what we try to focus on. Does it work?
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining
me. Robert. Thank you, man. This is great.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for this episode of Saves Farms, and can't wait to have you back. And Robert Wallace, Saves Farms.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So
thank you guys.
Thanks you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.